safer at home order. Alabama is continuing to have more cases of COVID-19. It is continuing to unfortunately take the lives of members of our state. The order is a little bit more restricted than what we would have liked to seen, but it's based on data. And the White House and the CDC have recommended that we have 14 consecutive days of decreasing viral cases, and that has not occurred in Alabama. We're relatively flat. We have a slight downward number of actual new cases from where we were at a high point, but we're still getting a significant number of cases every single day. This is negatively impacting our long-term care facilities, and it has serious potential impacts on the correctional facilities. So your health department is continuing to work with our Unified Command partners and to provide a safe environment for everybody to continue in Mobile, Alabama. We hope that we will have, moving forward, when we have our 14 consecutive days of downward trend case numbers in Alabama, but the new health order will extend into the middle of May. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Stimson at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Isho. In preparing for this conference, the Unified Command decided that the simplest thing to do is to just repeat what the governor has said during her press conference, and really it's summed up on these sheets. One is, what's new, and the other is frequently asked questions. As in the past, I have refrained from trying to answer a lot of direct questions because it is spelled out specifically in documentation on the city's website. I feel certain it's going to be on the county's website, or certainly the Mobile Health Department's website. So it's easily available to any of our citizens for you to see what's different. Kind of from an overview of this, there are people that thinks that she went too far in releasing, opening the beaches and allowing the retail to be open. But there are others that think that she should have been stronger and not done anything. So I don't think that everybody is satisfied with it. I do know this, that she is genuinely concerned about your health, everybody's health, just as the three of us are. And so with that, I would just ask if Commissioner Ludgood would like to come make a couple of remarks at this time.
We just use this opportunity to stay in keeping with the governor's thing, or safer at home. This is a yard sign campaign that we'll be launching. If you'd like a yard sign, you can call the mayor's office, my office, the Department of Health, and we'll make sure that you get your sign. But this is just to remind everyone of two things. One, that we have some people out there on the front lines who are putting their lives at risk for us, and that we have a responsibility as well. And the way that we can, the best thing that we can do for them is to stay at home and be a hero.
So we'll be glad to answer any questions that have come to us from the media.
Governor Ivey's order included the reopening of beaches in the state under restrictions of gatherings of fewer than 10 people and social distancing of 6 feet from each other. In Dauphin Island, how will the reopening be handled? What are your recommendations for people who are visiting the beach this weekend?
So my recommendation for the people visiting the beach is that you abide by the order of maintaining the social distancing, and that you not gather in groups of more than 10 people. But from an enforcement standpoint, that will be up to the mayor and his police department down there to make sure that, that all the participants at the beach will adhere to those guidelines.
At 5 p.m. Thursday or Friday morning, depending on when it opens, what type of message do you have for shoppers who are headed to Bel Air Mall or any other shopping centers around Mobile that have been closed for the past month? What kind of message do you have for the retailers?
if the message for the shoppers is the same as it would be for those going to the beach. You know, be careful of your social distancing, and there will be more than 10 people in many of those stores because the limiting capacity and the retail will be 50% of the fire capacity of each store. So, but still, you are responsible in great deal for your own health, so you should be wearing your face mask as suggested by the Mobile County Health Department and the Unified Command, and keep your distance.
Governor Ivey is moving to restart the economy before some health experts say it is safe. Also today, Dr. Harris said we have only met 2 of the 3 White House guidelines on reopening. Are we doing this too soon, in your opinion?
So I think that there's many opinions as there are people. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow the governor's lead. She has weighed this, having all the data available to her. She's also been responsive to the various constituent groups and all the citizens in the state of Alabama. So really our opinion I don't think really matters at this point, is that we are, again, we are responsible for our own health. And as the mayor of Mobile, County Commission, Public Health Department, we're going to take our responsibilities and support the governor.
Dr. Eichel, could you answer that question too?
Yes, the question is, have we started, and having not met all 3 of the criteria, started too soon? And my statement is no. I think we've got to slowly start moving forward. We've got relatively flat numbers right now. We've actually had some increases in certain populations of our community, those who are older and at-risk individuals. But I think we've got to take very, very careful baby steps as we move forward. And yes, people need to have access to retail products. It's been, you know, a good period of time. And I think people need to have personal responsibility. As the mayor said, you need to take it seriously. Unfortunately, there have been 8 people in Alabama who are relatively healthy, younger people, no underlying comorbidity factors, who have died from COVID-19. So we have hospital capacity, we have respirators, but a large number of the people who end up in the hospital in the intensive care unit on respirators do not do well. So again, the most important component to this disease is prevention. So please, please, please take it seriously. Continue to wash your hands. Maintain the 6-foot distance. The interesting thing is that we now call it in gatherings is no more than 10 people. But if you're in your family, the same family that lives in the same household, it's okay for you to be in less than 6 feet apart, because that's the environment that you're staying in at home. So as you go to the beach, as you rent a condominium, rent a house, go to a hotel or motel, the same family unit dynamics will be less than 6 feet. But please, please, please continue to maintain your personal responsibility and the safety of others, and wear your personal face covering. So had one homemade that's given to me, and it's doesn't have to be fancy. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Eichel, another question. Earlier today, you put out a statement that said the disease remains very active in our community. Simply put, do you disagree with the governor's order?
No, I do not disagree with the governor's order. I think the governor's order is appropriate. I think it's based on data. I think she's gotten good input from academic leaders within our state, at medical schools, schools of public health. I think she is doing a good job, and I think just, again, baby steps as we move forward, and we have to watch the data. As I've said before, the prairie dog analysis, as anybody's looked at the prairie dogs, they always come up and looking to make sure that there's safety all the time, and somebody's standing watch. Right now, I think the governor's team is watching very closely with the number of new cases that we have, and watching the data. And if we continue in the trend that we're going, I think we're going to continue to move forward. But remember, there is no cure and there is no vaccine for this illness, so it will be with us for months.
As businesses start opening back up, has there been a thought about making masks mandatory to limit the spread?
Yes, we've discussed that at several levels in Montgomery and between various health departments. The idea is that we've asked a lot of our community. We need to encourage them to tell them they have to wear a mask. It's like many other safety issues, is we think it's best to continue to educate, to advise. Law enforcement has enough things to do right now with many issues that are still in our community, and so that is an option. But if you don't want to get the virus and you don't want to give it to somebody else, if you are an asymptomatic carrier, please wear your face covering.
According to researchers at the University of Maryland, using cell phone data, they found just 25% of Mobile County residents followed the stay-at-home order last week. Does that concern you about people listening to this order?
Yes, it does. I think that people need to have personal responsibility, and data is important. We all think this will not impact us or our families. That is not true. This, regardless of whether you're a very high-paid individual or you're a person who's just trying to make it in the real world, this virus will infect and cause illness to anybody.
Last week, you mentioned you're concerned about a second wave. If we aren't cautious, is this new order cautious?
Yeah, the new order really is what happened in 1918, is that the pandemic manifested itself really actually in Kansas. They call it the Spanish flu, an educational opportunity, is because the Spanish government was the first one that said that this is an epidemic, so they named it after the country of Spain. It made its first presentation about the same time as we're having COVID-19. It then kind of went away with social distancing and people making precautions. World War I was going on at the time, and then it resurfaced again at a later date in September, October timeframe, and had much more devastating impacts. Again, I think people didn't know a lot about the epidemiology of these type of viral illnesses, and there was a much larger loss of life. On the order of 10 to 20 times more people died during the second wave than they died in the first wave.
Mayor Stimson? The state says 50% capacity in retail stores. Will the city and possibly county limit the number further? How do you plan to enforce that?
We do not plan to limit it any further than the 50%. Any comment? No comment from the county.
Some say that the stay-at-home order wasn't necessary because we never had a lot of infections and hospitals weren't inundated. In your view, as it's coming to an end, did it do what it was intended?
I think the stay-at-home order has done what it's intended, but I wouldn't say that we have come to the end at this point in time. I mean, if you look at what the situation is in the nursing homes now, there is still plenty of reason to be concerned if you look at the jail. So I think that while I think the correct thing was done and the stay-at-home did help, we still, as Dr. Ishow said, we still have a long way to go, and we have certain populations, especially those in confined areas, that are really suspect.
Will the curfew end?
The curfew will end on the 30th at, I think it's at midnight is when it ends. But anyway, yes, the curfew will end. One of the things I would like to also point out that hasn't been mentioned is that the governor's stay-at-home order, you know, it says that it expires on May 15th, which should tell everybody that there evidently is going to be another order between now and May 15th, where she will address some of the concerns that exist in other areas where maybe she chose not to open up. Yep.
Governor Ivey referred to barbershops and beauty salons specifically in her order. Can you comment on them not being allowed to open at this time?
Well, last week, we engaged with the beauticians and barbers, or the cosmetologists, as they prefer to be referred to, and told them that we would weigh in on behalf of them with the governor. So on Friday, we sent an email outlining the things that we had learned from the cosmetologists and the barbers. We had attached to our request the safety protocols that they were willing to adopt. They were well thought out, and they pointed out to us that they are governed by a cosmetology board, and it seemed that we had it all lined up. Well, certainly we had lined up what we sent in the email, and we're hopeful that the governor was going to make that part of her order. But over the weekend, as they vetted the pros and cons, and the decision was made not to. But I can say this, that this is not part of the unified command, but as part of the mayors of the 10 largest cities. As early as, or as late as this morning, early this morning, the 10 of us sent a letter to the mayor hoping that she would make it part of her announcement addressing the beauty parlors and the barbershops. But she chose not to. We had done and followed through to the best we knew how to represent them, but we do respect her decision, and we will enforce her decision. Because I know, even though she made a comment about her hair and her beautician, and she said it maybe in jest, I do know that she is serious about grasping the challenge that exists among those workers, and that she will probably address that as soon as she can, would be our hope. Yep.
In regards to Governor Ivey's Safer at Home order, what strategy will be used to open businesses here in Mobile County?
Well, from the strategy standpoint, I think that if you really, what's being opened up, I'll just address the retail. And that's going to be up to those individual stores, what they decide and what they're comfortable doing. And if you think of a men's clothing store, a ladies' boutique, or some kind of gift shop, each one of them is going to do something a little different. And it may be that they change their hours. They may change obviously they're going to have to limit on these smaller locations, how many people can come in the door. But we're going to leave that up to the businesses to make that decision, because that's in the best interest of the business and their customers. Yep.
If all the sacrifices people in Alabama have made over the past 6 weeks have only resulted in leveling the cases, not a drop, what do they think that loosening restrictions won't cause a rise?
Well, I'm not so sure that they don't think that there may be a rise. I mean, everybody knows that there will be a rise, because the conversation about a second wave, typically I think when you think of it, you think several months down the road. But when you release the stay-at-home order and you have more people interacting, you probably will see an increase. The hope for is, though, that you're better prepared for if you start seeing an increase. There's nothing to keep the governor from reimposing an order if it seems to be climbing climbing to a point where it's unsafe. So I think this is a process that we will continue to go through in the coming months.
How is the city preparing for Friday?
Well, and specifically in what regard?
With the stay-at-home order?
Well, really, it's a safer, and it's not a stay-at-home. I'm not so sure there's not somewhat for us and the city employees. Let me speak to just that part of it. We're going to continue operating the business of the city just as we always have, knowing, though, that we will have more retail establishments opened, that you'll have more traffic probably going to the beach. So, we'll test it as it goes forward.
Will city playgrounds and basketball courts be reopened?
No, that was not part of the order to reopen the basketball courts and the playgrounds.
What kind of enforcement measures will be in place making sure the new standards are met?
So if you're specifically referring to the standards having to do with the number of people that can be in a gathering, I mean, our police department, we They'll be enforcing the rule of 10, and we got off the phone 30 minutes ago with Chief Batiste, and that's going to be the tool that he uses to make sure that we don't have gatherings of crowds during the daytime or at nighttime.
How will capacity be enforced with small businesses as well as big box stores at the same time?
Well, my hope is that those small businesses will self-restrict, their own, and we won't have to enforce for the small businesses. I think that they recognize that they have a responsibility to take care of themselves and their customers. And what's at risk for the small business, if someone walks in and nobody is paying any attention to the number of people that are supposed to be there, or they're not paying attention to the social distancing, my guess is those customers probably won't come back, or a certain number of them won't. So we're hoping that they will self-police, because we really don't have enough law enforcement officers to go check on everybody to make sure that they are doing the things that are outlined in the order.
Commissioner Ludgood, could you tell us again, how do you get the yard signs?
The yard signs are hot off the press, so right now we were waiting to see what venues might be open where you would be able to pick them up. Right now you can get them from Government Plaza. You can just call 574-1000, which is my office number, and we will deploy them from there. But we're just encouraging everyone to, if you would, to stand up and be counted, and encourage people to be safer at home. I'd like to echo both Dr. Eichel and the mayor in their call for personal responsibility. The governor did what she thought was best based on the information she had. But there's a piece of this that's plain old common sense. And if the governor is sending a message, this is the best we can do right now. We're not yet out of the woods. We still have to pay attention. That ought to be the message that all of us are hearing. And so when someone says, please wear your face covering, stay 6 feet away, those ought to become second nature to us. We all have to just take care of ourselves, and in taking care of ourselves, we take care of each other. She didn't say stay at home, but she did say you're safer at home. So all of the retail that's now open and available, and those things that you've been wanting to do those, but still make sure you're doing them in a safe environment. And like the mayor says, I think there will be some self-policing, because if I go in somewhere that is not honoring 6 feet, that has too many people, I'm going to turn around at the door and leave. And we've got to get really serious. And I still run into people now, see people who are not using their face covering in a retail setting. And quite frankly, that is just counter to all of the really good advice we've been given about how to control this.
One last question for Mayor Simpson. Yes. What is your reaction of the Mobile City Council's decision not to authorize the payment for additional antibody tests? Is there a need for more information about testing and what it means in Mobile?
To me, it was just a procedural deal. I mean, there's no doubt that they're going to approve it, but, they have a 1-week holdover really on almost everything, and so it was the first reading. Actually, we have received, this was an after-a-fact payment, and so I have no reaction to it. Yeah.
Closing comments?
Closing comments are that, again, it's the balance of your health and your livelihood. And we, the Unified Command, along with the governor, are doing the very best we can to balance those two things. We know that we've got to get parts of the economy started back, but we can't do it at the risk of having more people unnecessarily get sick. So thank everybody for your attention, and I look forward to being back at you probably a week from now. So, yep, Bert.
Thank you again, everybody, for all the hard work that you're doing. Please, please, again, take it seriously. We do not want to have a large second wave of this illness or disease negatively impact the health of our community and the economy of our community. Thank you.
This has been a Fox 10 News Coronavirus Update. For the latest breaking news, stay with Fox 10 News on air, online, and on the Fox 10 News app. We now join our regularly scheduled program already in progress.